All right, guys. Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're just going to go over some major topics related to information that you guys have kind of been going over the last couple classes. Okay. So to begin, we're going to start talking about um, the Vietnam War and how it is going to look in 1968 and the next couple years after that. All right. So based on the assignment you guys did last time, you watched that video on 1968 and you learned, what a crazy time 1968 was for the United States, especially because of the Vietnam War. Um, there were protests occurring across the United States of America. Um, People were sick and tired of this war going on. Um, they were angry at the government, angry at President Johnson, because they didn't think we should be fighting in Vietnam. Right? They didn't understand or see Vietnam as a threat. Okay. So they tended to take out their frustration. The American citizens took out their frustration um, on the government, and also on soldiers returning from Vietnam. Um, they would, say nasty things to these people in the streets, nasty signs calling them murderers. And most of these American soldiers were just doing their jobs. They were drafted. Not all of them were going out to villages and decimating villages. Okay. 1968, we also had two assassinations of very important and vital leaders. First one being Martin Luther King on April 4th, 1968. He was, as you all know, how important he was to the civil rights movement. He was also speaking out against the Vietnam War, obviously preaching nonviolence, right? And he was killed on his balcony in Memphis, and his death led to revolts and protests throughout the United States of America. In major cities, people were burning things to the ground, destroying property. They were so angry that their beloved leader was killed. RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, who is JFK's brother, he was running to be the next president of the United States as a Democrat. And he was very intelligent in that he actually spoke about MLK's death in a very calm, mournful, sorrowful way. And his speech was able to keep everyone, especially the African American community, kind of calm and nonviolent. He said that Martin Luther King wouldn't want violence to continue because of his death. Right. Then, about a month later, Robert F. Kennedy is shot and killed. This is a picture of Robert F. Kennedy after he was shot in a kitchen. He was speaking at the Democratic convention, and he was killed by a guy named Saran, who they caught, and we still don't really know why he killed him. But RFK was murdered, and this sent a crash wave throughout the United States of America. Obviously, many people were upset. They saw RFK as hope, because he was preaching and claiming that he was going to get the United States out of the Vietnam War. He was also working with the African American community to get even more rights and equality for them. So this was a crushing defeat or loss, you could say. In 1968, we also had there was a presidential election. um, President Johnson decides he is not going to run for president, and we have Richard Nixon, who becomes the next president of the United States. Nixon promises to end United States involvement in Vietnam. So that was pretty much how he got elected. People really wanted to get out of Vietnam. So he won the election and became the next president, right? And as he becomes the next president, let me just find the next picture. Okay. As he becomes the next president, the year is now 1969, and the war in Vietnam is still going on. Um, in uh, in 1968, if you remember, there was that Tet Offensive where the North Vietnamese attacked and they attacked United States soldiers. This led to many United States soldiers' deaths, and it also made the country realize that the Vietnam War was um, kind of going to be a stalemate, that the United States was not going to be able to win this. So that's why they were happy that Nixon became president, because he was saying he was going to get us out of it. Okay. As Nixon becomes president, he adopts something called a policy called Vietnamization. Okay. And what that means, Vietnamization, is he wants South Vietnam to protect themselves and to fight for themselves. So he is slowly going to train South Vietnamese armies um, and give them supplies, and he's going to have them fight in North Vietnam. Fight for your own country is what he's saying. And he's going to slowly take out American soldiers, bring American soldiers back home. So in 1969, there was about 500,000 American soldiers in Vietnam. 2 years later, in 1971, there's only going to be 25,000 U.S. soldiers. So his plan is working. He's getting the United States men out of this country and out of this war, right? Unfortunately, though, the Vietnamization is not going to be very effective because the South Vietnamese armies, no matter how much training we give them, they're really not. They're not good soldiers. They don't follow directions very well. The leadership that they have is not as intelligent as the North. So the South is going to be kind of taken over, and they're not going to be winning. Okay. Nixon then has a plan to win this war. As he decides he's going to bomb a country called Cambodia, which you can see right here on this map. Okay. He's bombing this country because if you remember, the Ho Chi Minh Trail goes through Laos and Cambodia, and this trail was where the North Vietnamese were getting their supplies into South Vietnam. He decides, let's just bomb the heck out of that trail, right? He does this in secret because technically the United States would be like invading or attacking another country that's not in war. So he didn't want the American people to know. Eventually, he goes on to TV, on to national news. He tells the American people that we are bombing Cambodia. And when he does this, the American people go crazy. They are very, very, very angry because to them, this is an escalation of the war. We're attacking another country. We should be getting out of Vietnam, not expanding this war. So this leads to protests all over United States cities and major colleges because young people during this time, the youth movement, are very against Vietnam, very against war and violence. Okay, so this is going to lead to something called the Kent State Massacre, which is Kent State is a college in Ohio. and there's going to be a confrontation between students and the National Guard. And the National Guard actually shoots and kills um, 4 college students. Um, very, very, very sad day. And this scene is going to be played out in a couple other colleges across the United States where there's confrontations between police and protesters. Okay. Pretty much 1969, the American people believed that Richard Nixon was going to get them out of the war. He started to do that by pulling out U.S. troops, by training the South Vietnamese armies, but he also kind of, you could say, lied to the American people in a way. He started bombing Cambodia, and this led to huge mistrust between American citizens and their government. Right. So even more reasons why this war, Vietnam War, is very unpopular. Um, okay, good.